hear me first off. Yeah, I'm gonna start my timer. My staff has said I can talk about this for 2 hours if left in my advice. Before we get started, I want to make some introductions that will become clearer as this presentation goes on. Mostly in the, well, no, entirely in the front row. I'm going to start over here with Sean Emerson. She's our department's coordinator and really our budget manager, among other things. Kim Sanderson, our on-street enforcement manager. Kira Fields, who's our analyst and also our liaison to Chatham Area Transit. We'll get into that in a little bit. Chabatika Taylor, who is manager over facilities, which would include garages, and Stephanie Nelson, who is over cashiering and collections. So when you go into the office, those folks at the front desk, they all answer to her. I would also like to mention my boss is here, Faye DeMassimo, Chief of Planning and Economic Development. I also know this, Jerry's here, Jerry Bartley from Revenue and Alcohol Enforcement. Dr. Blaylock is here also. I'm sorry. I'm not going to introduce everyone from the city, but as I see them, I point them out.
Megan is here too.
Oh,
Intergovernmental Affairs.
where is she? Megan? Megan is here. Megan Siebold. And our public.
Monique Williams.
Apologies, I didn't realize you. So I want to start this presentation with an introduction, and that introduction is, why do we exist? I think it's important to start there because it is not as obvious as, say, police or fire or water. And the best way that I can give as to why we exist is that we have curb space in sought-after areas, primarily downtown. Curb space where your customers want to park, where your workers want to park, where FedEx, UPS, DHL want to park, where taxis want to park, where rideshare wants to park, where a whole group of folks would like access to that curb space for various reasons. And the reality is that there are times, not all the time, but there are definitely times when there is not enough of that curb space where all of those groups want to go. So your options at that point are, let it be a free-for-all, and I'm not gonna, some cities do that, or attempt to regulate. And when it comes to curb space, and you're trying to regulate, there's really two ways to do it. You can regulate curb space by time. In other words, you can tell people, you can only be here so long, and then you gotta move on. Or you can do that with the price. I'm gonna price this, you can use it for as long as you want, but you're gonna have to pay this much to be here. And then in some cases, there is a combination of the two. And even when we start getting into specialized zones, like a freight zone, there's still the incorporation of time there, because ultimately, the only way to get all of those groups into the curb space is to create turnover. Now, my friends in the restaurant industry, very familiar with that term in terms of tables. We are familiar with that term in terms of the curb space, creating enough turnover that people can do what they need to do or want to do, but then move on so that someone else can go. And that's the best way that I can describe what we do on street. And then we have an off-street system. Years ago, this city made a decision that it would start actively building garages. Now, that is not a decision that I would even say most cities have made. That's a decision that we made because we realized that, at least at that point, the private sector was not going to build it on get into the why of that in just a minute. And so we maintain a number of garages. We maintain curb space. I will go into a bunch of special programs that I know in particular there are questions about. We'll talk about alternative transportation, and then I'd like to give you all a pretty quick update on Parking Matters. The latest edition of Parking Matters is affecting primarily south of Liberty to Victory, but you all should certainly know about that. I want to talk about the parking fund in general. We are an enterprise fund, and the best way to describe that is that we are a government-run business, but we tend to have less of a profit motive than if we were not a government-run business. And by government-run business, I literally mean we have to be self-supporting. We don't get property tax dollars in our operations. We have to, whatever we spend, we have to raise on our own. And in fact, along with the rest of our staff, we as a department pay taxes or payments in lieu of taxes to the city because we own properties. And we pay taxes ultimately on those properties just like everyone else. 66 employees. I'll mention we've gone through on-street, off-street. There is a small group that is not here, and that's regulation. So within our department, we regulate taxis, tow trucks, motor coaches, a variety of things that fall under what's called the transportation office. That's a pretty small part of what we do. I believe that's 4 employees at this point. And then we maintain contracts with what we like to refer to as alternative transportation. We'll get into that. Chatham Area Transit, the company that runs Downtowner, among a few others. I'll start with on-street, and I'm going to get right into on-street technology. How many people have the Park Savannah app? Okay, yeah, and the numbers would tell me that. I get reports on how many active users, how many daily users. A significant amount of all on-street transactions are now happening on that app. That's what we wanted. That app has now been in our community for about 8 years, and the goal there was we wanted something that was very simple to use and widely available. And I would say Passport has largely met that. There is a second app I'd like to introduce you to because a lot of you may not know it, and that is Flowbird. Why do we have 2 apps? The first app is if you're just going to park regularly as you normally do, go ahead, use that app. No, nothing changes. Flowbird is the result of another program that we run. I'll get into more later, but using smart codes. Smart codes are rechargeable codes that people, essentially it's a wallet that carries a number of hours that you can then use at meters. And up until the introduction of this app, you could only use that physically at a meter. So you had to walk up to the meter, ask you for your code, you put your code in, and then it would deduct the number of hours that you had in your wallet from that code. Flowbird, and this is where we heard, a lot of the people who have those codes said, we really want to use it on an app so that we don't have to walk up to the meter. And the company that provides our meters also, starting last year, made an app. And so we brought Flowbird on, and that app primarily is used for people who maintain smart codes. Once again, I'm going to go into smart codes in a second because I think you all need to know about them and the advantage that they potentially give you. One question I often get is when an enforcement officer is walking down the street, how do they know who's paid and who hasn't. There you go. An enforcement officer will walk down a particular block and they will see this space is green, paid, or not, or red, not paid. Now I want to make a distinction. It's an important distinction to make. Paid does not mean, red, which means unpaid, does not mean that no one is in the space. There are a whole set of reasons why someone is not paying, but is physically in the space. Starting with, they just didn't pay. But also it could be they have a residential decal or a public safety vehicle. Whole set of reasons why they not. So that red does not necessarily mean the space is open, but it does mean that whatever is there has not paid on the space. The enforcement officer then needs to look at the vehicle to see, is there a decal on it? Is there some special situation that would allow them to be there without paying? And if the answer to that is no, that is when a citation is assigned. I want to also talk about this because I appreciate that there is a level of confusion also about where enforcement happens and when. And the line that I want you to draw as of right now, that may change later this year, but as of right now is Liberty Street. If you are north of Liberty, then enforcement hours on meters are Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. If you are south of Liberty, enforcement hours are Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Now, the reason that distinction exists is that the last time we did the Parking Matters update, City Council at that point, some 10 years ago, wanted to implement the recommendations in a tighter area than what was initially recommended. And so the boundary line that was drawn was Liberty Street. So on particular Saturdays, this is where and I will admit that there is confusion among people who don't know the system. If you're south of Liberty, you don't have to pay on any meter on Saturday. If you're north of Liberty, you do. And that's the distinction, that is the distinction that we make. All right, how many officers do we have out at any given point? Usually it's somewhere in the 5, 6 range. I know there are people who have asked me, do you have 20, 30, 40 officers out? The answer is no. It's typically only 5 to 6 officers. They can be a little bit more efficient because they have this system. But what we know, and what every city we talk to tells us, is that ultimately we don't catch the majority of violations. And that really isn't the point. The point is deterrence. The point is to have enough people out that people make the decision to do the right thing. Most cities, if you ask them what percentage of violations they actually catch that are occurring, would peg it somewhere in the 10%. Now some cities, there's a couple out there decided, you know what, we're going after everyone. You know, if we're gonna have 25 people out on the street at all times, that you can do that, but that's not a philosophy that we have followed. Ultimately, deterrence usually works, usually. I will also note that we have an expansive back office system that we have developed over years, and developing a back office system to process citations is not an easy thing, and so we end up being the processor for a bunch of other entities. In some cases, code compliance citations are funneled through our back office. Savannah Police will send a lot of their stuff through our back office. The airport, if you get a parking citation at the airport, it is coming to us because they don't write enough tickets to justify spending $1 million on a back office system. They'd rather just give it to someone who already has it established. Off-street, we have a bunch of garages. I'm not going to go into all of this. You've got the sizes. I will say that up until probably 5 years ago, we were really the only entities building garages. 7, I'll say 7 years ago. And we have built them at a pace that the parking fund generally allows. And so I go back to that, hey, we're a government-run enterprise. We have to sustain our own expenses. And a question, what is the most expensive part of running a parking garage? Who knows this? You can't say.
I'm just gonna take a guess, the elevators?
Ma'am, you have done, we'll talk about elevators. I'm willing to talk about elevators, but no, it's nowhere near. What is the most expensive part of operating a garage? Security is expensive, but it's not that expensive.
Taxes.
Yeah, no.
Replacing the broken arm.
No, I mean, they can tell you stories, but no. The most expensive part every year of owning a parking garage is debt service.
Is what?
By far. Debt service. The debt that you incur to build the garage in the first place, that you then spend the next 15 to 20 to 25 years paying off, is the most expensive part of operating a garage. And as a rule of thumb, most parking garages do not actually make money until the day the debt is paid off.
So how many of those garages are debt-free?
Good question. We were going in a great direction. Ryan was paid off. State was paid off. Robinson was paid off. But we still have to pay on Liberty. We still have to pay a giant amount on Whitaker. And now we have new garages coming, all of which are debt service. Forsyth, Eastern Wharf, which is only in the last couple of years, has a large debt service payment of just right at $2 million a year. And the reason for this is that building garages is not cheap. And I'm giving you a range right now based on our experience and the experience of other entities that we talk to that build garages in the community. And right now, you know, $55,000 to $65,000 a space above ground, all in, is pretty typical right now. If you're going underground, $65,000 to $90,000. I will tell you, Plant Riverside, a garage in which we helped to build that, came in at right at $100,000 a space, because it is 4 levels completely underground, and not only underground, but underwater level. So right now, 70% of what the parking fund pays is debt service. Like, not even close. Personnel, important, no doubt, but nowhere near what the cost is in terms of what we invest. 70% of our garage expenses is just the debt service. And as a lot of you may know, debt holders don't care how well the economy is doing. We've mentioned before, we have 2 future garages coming up. Forsyth at about 425, 30 spaces, and a second Eastern Wharf garage, which will be about 430 spaces. That one will be right next to, I think I can finally publicly say, Publix, which was probably the worst kept secret of what was coming for the last year. Let's talk about off-street. We have a parking access control system, and that's just a fancy way of saying, hey, we have payment systems that talk to gates, that talk to our accounts. You'll notice here, if you can barely see it, one of the things that system can tell us is how full a garage is, which proves very helpful. We have I'll still call it brand new, online account system that we are slowly moving people to. Percentage-wise, what are we at? 60% of our users right now are on that system. We want to get that as high as possible. It allows you to control your own account and not have to call or come into the office in order to do whatever it is you need to do, add an account, drop an account. It allows you to do all of that. And so, Ms. Taylor, who is here, if you want to know more about that system, please talk to her, because the more people we get on that system, the more efficient we become. All right, let's talk about special programs. Years ago, we decided to start an afternoon, what we call an afternoon evening worker program. We have, and we know we have, capacity in our garages starting about 3 p.m. Oh, kept going. Okay. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Okay. Years ago, we can track enough in our garages to know we've got capacity up about 2, 3 p.m. And so that's when people start leaving garages who have monthly cards. And so we have an afternoon, evening monthly card program. It goes from 3 p.m. to 5 a.m. It's $35 a month. It is applicable in any garage. Because in every garage, we know we have that capacity go up as the afternoon hits and into the evening. So we're not worried about doing the worst thing that you could possibly do to someone who has a monthly card, which we call displacement. And displacement is you have a monthly card, you come to the garage, and there are no spaces for you. So when we developed this program, we said, what is a safe time where we can have this? And 3 o'clock is about what we landed on. I'm going to talk about smart codes now. All right. We sell smart codes, which I went into a little bit earlier, at $1 an hour. It doesn't matter where you use them. So if you use them in an area where it's $2.50 an hour, which is north of Oglethorpe, well, you bought them at $1 an hour. We have a significant number of businesses that currently do this, and we would like to see more, because ultimately we understand that we needed to have some sort of discount system out there, and this is it. And once again, these codes are rechargeable, so you can go in, buy 200 hours, then it tells you on the app, oh, I'm down to 50, let me go back in and buy 200 more. I will not name the business, but we have a business that comes in every year and buys 5,000 hours up front. 15.
No, they get 10,000 if they buy 5.
Oh, right. So essentially, for that $5,000, they get 15,000 hours. 10. Okay. No, you're right. All right.
Is the smart code only good north of Oglethorpe?
It is good anywhere where there is a multi-space meter. And there's a bunch of those south also. So I want to make that program clear, because I know there have been questions about it. I also want to talk about validation systems. Validation systems occur in 2 ways at garages. We can create essentially barcodes. When your customer or worker or visitor leaves, they just scan the barcode. The barcode lets them know, oh, this person has a validation, and lets them out. The cost of that, whatever we negotiated with you, then comes back on an account that sits in our system. The second type of validation is in-house validation. Now, this is presumably for someone with a fair amount of volume, where we house a validation machine in your business and you validate right there. And that does the same thing as the barcode, it just does it to the ticket right there. Now, we've got a couple of cases where it's being used right now. I will say up front, we don't have a business using it. We know we have the county courthouse using it for jurors. So if you get called into jury duty and they're like, oh, you parked in Robinson, I'll validate your parking, that's our machine. And then we have that City Hall, for folks who have to go to meetings at City Hall and then get their parking validated. If you think you're gonna have some level of volume on this, this is definitely an option I would look at.
Where do you buy the smart code discounts?
Smart codes can be purchased in the office. One of the things that I would love to see is online purchase of them, but I know we're not there yet. But yes, they can be purchased in the office on Bryant Street. All right, alternative transportation. One of the things that we do is we reinvest some of what we make. It must be on a timer. Okay. It's standing. All right. One of the things that we do is we reinvest because ultimately, on peak days, at peak times, we can't really build our way out of that. I can't go into the heart of downtown, buy 3 blocks, and just say, I'm going to throw up a 2,000 space garage. A, it'd be ungodly expensive. And B, that is probably not the highest and best use of that land. So we fund a whole bunch of programs to give people other options. One of them is DOT. Ms. Fields is our liaison to Chatham Area Transit. We run 2 routes. I will tell you, the contract for this is up this year, and we're going to be having, I think, frank but productive conversations with Chatham Area Transit about our expectations for a service that we take. I have heard from some of you and from folks outside of this room that have said that the service seems to have degraded over the years, and data that I'm seeing would seem to back that up. As we come into that contract renewal, look, I'm paying for a service. I need the service. Some of you may remember when DOT first came out, it went to midnight. I wanted desperately to go back to midnight, if not longer. And I appreciate Chatham Area Transit is struggling with drivers. But our goal is we want this to be as expansive as possible with the highest level of frequency as possible throughout the week. 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. is what it's running now. I really want this running longer. Downtowner was meant to address issues once Chatham Area Transit stopped running, which previously was midnight. Downtown runs 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. It is a ride-share service. It is free. It is also, to some degree, a victim of its own success. Right now, it moves about 250 to 300 people a day. That results right now in wait times of around, I've seen, the average is around 15 minutes. I've seen it as high as 30. Our plan for this is ultimately math. We just need to add more vehicles to it. So our plan over time is to just add more vehicles to it to bring the wait times down. Ideally, we would like it to be around 10 minutes, which is probably going to be at least 1 more vehicle in the system, if not 2. There's some discussion about wanting to expand the boundaries. Right now, the boundaries run River Street to Park Avenue, MLK to Broad. I know there's been some talk about wanting to do that. I want to get the frequency good before we do anything with the boundary. Same thing with DOT. I want to get that good in terms of frequency and service before we start talking about expansion. I know Haversham Village. It's obvious. It is obvious it should go out there, but I want the service to be good service before we try to expand. All right, I'm going to talk as quickly as I can about Parking Matters Update. The same team that did Parking Matters Update 8-10 years ago has done it this time around. And what's interesting is they can take the data that they saw 8 to 10 years ago and apply it in comparison to what they're seeing today. The first thing I will say is there is not some massive parking problem throughout that whole area. It is not. What we have are very localized potential areas where we can see, all right, it's already a little tight. Do we want to try to get ahead of it, or do we want to wait? And that's a policy decision. I'm good with either one, but what the consultants have told us is that they are seeing some very specific areas where it is starting to get tight, and future development would tell us it's going to get tighter. So one of the things that they recommended that I mentioned before, Liberty Street, that distinction, they want to take that distinction away. The advantage for the folks south of Liberty is, hey, I don't have to pay on Saturday, but the disadvantage is you have a smorgasbord of timing requirements. They want to match that all up so that there's just less confusion. And then in some areas, I'm going to go, they would like, once again, I have two ways to regulate: timing or cost. Timing would mean some sort of time zone or restricted zone. Cost is a meter. I know you don't like, I know a lot of people don't like them, but they do tend to be a very effective way to create turnover and in our case, when we do meters, we don't like to put time limits on them. If we price them correctly, you make the decision about how long you want to be there. So Liberty to Gaston, wherever you see a gray area is an area where, hey, that's a particular area where we've had residents or businesses or some entities tell us they have real concerns there. I will say right up front, because I know it's a question out there, we are in discussions with St. Vincent's. And those discussions have been good so far. So I think we're actually gonna end up being able to do a lot of this while not hurting St. Vincent's. So these folks, this would be Victorian neighborhood. They have had a lot of development in their area, and they've gone from, hey, I can just park right in front of my house at Wednesday at 6 p.m. to, oh, I had to park 2 blocks away. Oh, and I have groceries. And my house doesn't really have its own dedicated parking. We see a lot of that in that area. Anderson and 37, that is an area where we already have regulation. And I think this is just a further expansion of it. These folks are used to it because when Arnold Hall opened a number of years ago, they went from, oh, parking is very easy here, to I have to park 4 blocks away. And so we're trying to get ahead of any of the further development that's there. And then finally, Starland. That's, I mean, it's Thomas Square, but I think we're really talking about that Gold Street corridor. I want to start by saying this is my favorite part of the city. I don't live far from there. It is my favorite part of the city. I want it to thrive. I want it to succeed. And I think, you know, if you go there on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, you can find something. I just think this is the policy decision. Are we trying to get ahead, or are we waiting? And once again, I'm not mad at either decision being made, but the consultants would rather us be ahead, particularly in large developments that are coming up in that area. There's your summary. I won't go into that. You can see see it there. Also, this is all going online. The entire report, the entire 130-page report is going online for you to look at. Council saw a presentation of this a few weeks ago. They have asked to now see what those ordinances would look like, and so you're going to have multiple opportunities to talk to your council member. This is still got a little ways to go. And yeah, I'm gonna stop there.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Sean, so much.